I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this week's episode of the Balanced, Beautiful, and Abundant podcast.
But what's interesting, I think, if we take a step back and look at the big picture, is we are at the end of the day in kind of a global sex recession across all demographics. Yeah, people are having less sex than they were in decades prior. And it's weird. It's this very odd juxtaposition, especially in younger generations, because they talk a big game.
Level up, don't look back, let's go. Set the pace, watch me steal the show. Higher ground, yeah, I'm rising fast. This is my moment, it's built to last. Keep the focus, keep the drive. No slow motion, I'm alive. Power surging, can't deny. I'm unstoppable, touch the sky.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Balanced, Beautiful, and Abundant podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Whitman. We are going from burned out to balanced, beautiful, and abundant. And today we have a very special guest in the studio. Welcome to the show, Dr. Emily Jamea.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
It is so great to be here. I am so excited to get into a juicy and enlightening episode today about sex, love, and relationships. You're so authentic and full of truth, and I know my audience is going to get so much value from you. Let me tell them a little bit about your amazing background. So Dr. Emily is an award-winning sex and relationship therapist. She's a best-selling author, and she's host of the Love and Libido podcast. She holds a PhD in clinical sexology and is a licensed marriage family therapist and a professional counselor. She's been featured in the Oprah magazine, CNN, NBC, and USA Today for her groundbreaking work in helping people build deep connection and lasting passion. I think we all want that. Her book, Anatomy of Desire, 5 Secrets to Create Connection and Cultivate Passion, has been celebrated as the next big idea by Mind Valley Book Clubs. Welcome to the show. So glad you're here. What inspired you, Emily, to dedicate your career and life to sex and relationships?
Thank you, first of all, so much for having me on the show. I'm so thrilled to be here with you today. Oh gosh, it's always a multifactorial response, I think, and so many paths led me here. But the short of it is, I see sex and relationships as really the foundation for overall health and well-being. We are as healthy as our relationships with others. And sex is such an important part of romantic relationships, yet it is something that is often neglected, misunderstood, seen as just kind of a thing between two bodies rather than as an opportunity to connect emotionally or express one's self individually. It's relational. There's just so much to it. And, I find that when I'm able to work with people and help shed limiting beliefs and ideas about sex and replace them with new and fresh ones, that they find that their lives are just so much more meaningful and full than they were before. And so I just find it to be a real privilege to be a part of people's journey in that regard.
Did you ever have a turning point in your own sex or love life where you just hit a wall and you're like, I can't do this anymore. I've got to find a different approach?
I was very fortunate in that I was raised in a very open family as it relates to sex and relationships. So I had, really great information. I felt fairly empowered, I would say, compared to a lot of my peers to make good decisions about my sexuality and relationships. That's not to say, I've been married for 10 years. That's not to say there haven't been periods where I, like anyone else, have felt stuck. But I think I'm armed with the tools to navigate that. And, a lot of those I've included in the book.
Do you feel pressure to have like this amazing rock star sex life because you are a go-to expert on sex and long-term relationships?
Oh gosh, no. I learned a long time ago not to put any kind of pressure like that on myself. I think it's funny, my sweet husband being married to a therapist. There's times when he's like, "Stop acting like a therapist," and other times when he's like, "But you're a therapist. You should." And so I kind of get both sides. But no, I don't experience any feeling of pressure. I think he and I cultivate, that part of our relationship in a way that's meaningful for us. And I tell all of my clients, do not compare yourself to the neighbors. At the end of the day, you have to find what's going to be fulfilling and healthy for you. And that might look different than anybody else around you. And so I try to apply the same principle to myself.
That's wonderful. So I know you've counseled thousands of couples when it comes to their love life. What are some of the common challenges that prevent couples from attaining true intimacy?
If I had to whittle it down to probably the most common thing, it would be complacency.
Mm,
And
that's good.
it's interesting. In the beginning of the relationship, everything feels effortless and easy, but it is anything but. I mean, there is so much planning and anticipation and intention that goes into creating good quality dates or shaving all the things to get ready for what everyone knows is happening at the end of the date. But for some reason, when it comes to ultimately settling down with that person and building a life together, we stop putting effort into it. And do we need to, put 10 out of 10 effort all of the time? No. But should it fall to the back burner? Also, no. And I think that's where a lot of couples get stuck. And that's so easy to do, when life gets busy. You've got young kids. I've got young kids right now. I mean, I am very much in the thick of it. But, as I was saying before, I think because I know how to make sure that it stays a priority, we've been able to keep our relationship strong, and I want to help other couples do the same.
So do you recommend that people schedule sex dates so it doesn't get put on the back burner and it gets a priority?
I do. And I have a lot to say about that. First thing, I prefer the word plan over schedule. I just feel like you schedule a root canal, but you plan a party. So
I
for
love
me,
that.
the word plan
Plan.
has just a lighter, more positive connotation. As I was saying before, when you were dating, you were planning it. You didn't feel like you were planning it, but you were. I also encourage people to think of it more as a plan B or a fallback plan that's there if you don't connect maybe more organically other times during the week. I also tell people that just because you plan when doesn't mean you have to plan what. So there is still a lot of room for spontaneity and kind of making choices in the moment about, how it's going to be. Also, if intercourse with like a beginning, middle, and an end sounds like too much at any given on any given week for whatever reason, just to have some time where you have uninterrupted time to lie down with each other, kind of have some sort of skin to skin eye contact, you're engaged in a way that's a little bit more than just sitting across the kitchen table having a conversation. But it's okay if it's not, full-blown sex the way you think of it. But even that will help maintain the erotic charge. And then just because the time rolls around doesn't mean you can't cancel your plans. So if, I am like, pressure is just the worst thing for sex. And so we try to eliminate that any way we can. If you just have a splitting headache, you're tired, you're on a deadline, like whatever, you can reschedule your plans. So that's kind of my spiel when it comes to planning it.
And do you recommend that healthy couples have sex a certain time once or twice a week, or a minimum, a maximum? Like, do you have any opinions on that?
I am a quality over quantity gal, and that's, really reflected kind of in the research to quality of sex. I mean, I've counseled so many couples that, they are so dissatisfied despite having sex once or twice a week on average because they feel so disconnected, or it's just become so dutiful, or their partner hasn't adapted to maybe their changing needs in a way that makes it really that enjoyable anymore. So quality is important, but I do think around once a week to have some kind of time where you are connecting skin to skin is important.
Speaking of communicating needs, I know a lot of people listening to the show, they are intimidated or scared or don't know how to communicate what they would like in bed with their partner. Do you have any good tips on how to communicate your needs?
So probably my best tip is to make sure that when you're communicating your needs, you include the why. That's what's there. That's what they will remember. If it's just, hey, I need more of this or that, they are more likely to feel defensive or feel like you're criticizing them, or it can kind of go in one ear and out the other. But if you say something like, hey, I need a little bit more time, in foreplay, or I need you to give me like kind of a bit of a massage. And the reason for that is I just have so much chaos in my head during the day that I am struggling to make that transition into my body. And I know that by having another few minutes to kind of transition from, being a mom or being at the office or whatever it is into that erotic headspace will make it a lot more pleasurable for me. They're going to remember that. So that's probably my biggest tip.
That's a good tip. Don't just say what you need, say why you need it.
Mm-hmm.
And if the other partner is saying that, don't take it personally. I feel like people are so sensitive in this area. When someone's asking for a need to be met, it's not a criticism.
Right. There is so much sensitivity. And I'm always reminding couples, like, you're on the same team. Think of it as the team's needs, not one or the other's needs. It's always a balance, and it's so that everybody can have a better time.
Everybody can have an orgasm.
Yeah. If they want to have an orgasm, they can.
And if they don't, that's okay too.
That is just fine.
So what is your number one secret to better sex and why?
Practice makes perfect.
So
I know that I just said that quantity isn't as important, but what I will say, and this ties into my research, which looked at how to get into a state of flow during sex. Okay. So just to sidetrack really quick, for people listening who don't know what a flow state is, it's a psychological state of mind that we enter when we are so fully engaged in an activity that we experience a loss of space and time, complete absorption, rapt attention. Think of a surfer who's at one with the wave. And so if what you're longing for is sex at that optimal level, sex that makes the world around you disappear, it's going to be hard to get into that state if you're very rarely doing it, and we know that from flow state science. Like, if a musician hasn't picked up their instrument in 6 months, they're going to have to retune it. They may have to kind of flip through their music again. Like, they're just not going to get into that state of flow the first time they pick it up. They might, but it's less likely. And so that's part of the reason why I'm so big on having just kind of that intentional, regular time together so that it's easier to slip into that higher intensity sex if and when you want to enjoy it like that.
I think a flow state, because I'm a tennis player, is like getting out of your head and into your body and just in the moment, because it's kind of like with anything physical, if you're in your head, you're dead.
Yeah.
So do you have any good advice on someone to get out of their head and into the present moment in their body so that they can enter this beautiful flow state?
Yeah. So there are lots of flow state hacks. And I outline a lot of them in the book. The book is broken down essentially into 5 secrets. There you go. Yes. So,
if you haven't seen it yet, if you're watching on YouTube, it's a beautiful book. It's Anatomy of Desire, 5 Secrets to Create Connection, Cultivate Passion. If you're watching it, if you're listening on audio, grab this book or watch it on YouTube so you can see it. And we'll put it in the show notes, but this is an amazing book.
Yes, thank you. And so to answer your question, the sensuality chapter is that's what it's all about. It's about how to re-inhabit the body, disconnect from the many thoughts we have. It's interesting when you look at research on focus, like take office workers, for instance, they find that it takes them an average of, I think it was like 11 to 15 minutes to get into a focused state. If during that time they're interrupted by a ping or an email or a tap on the shoulder, it can take upwards of 25 minutes to get back into a focused state. Most people don't have sex that lasts for 11 to 15 minutes. And so, that's why it's really important to do what you can ahead of time to start quieting down the mind and getting in touch with the body. In my research, I found that the more embodied people were in their day-to-day life. And what I mean by that is, these were people who, when they were out for a walk, they were just in nature. They weren't simultaneously listening to a podcast, or when they're taking a shower, they're really just enjoying that and focusing on the sensation of water on their skin. Or when they sit down for lunch, they're just enjoying a meal. They're not also checking emails. So we live in a split attention world, and you cannot expect to go from multiple browser tabs open in your head to the singular focus of sex and presence in the body. And so the sensuality chapter really explains how to do that well.
That is so well said. You can't have multiple tabs open in your brain and have great sex at the same time. I love that. We are going to cut to a quick commercial break. Thanks everyone for watching the Balanced, Beautiful, and Abundant show. We'll be right back. I am so excited. I created something special just for you. It's called the Balanced Beautiful Bundle. And inside this bundle, you're going to get instant access to a PDF copy of my best-selling book, How to Make a Six-Figure Income Working Part-Time. You're going to get my best health and beauty tips to help you glow from the inside out. You'll get my Elegant Warrior Manifesto, a daily reminder of your power, grace, and purpose. You'll get my Abundance Journal to help you manifest more joy, love, and prosperity. And you'll get a daily journal reminder to keep your mindset strong and your energy and your vibe high every single day. This bundle is your shortcut to balance, beauty, and abundance in an elegant way. So grab your copy now by going to the show notes and start living your most balanced, beautiful, abundant life today. Hey there, it's Rebecca, your magnetic abundance mentor. Let me ask you something. Are you feeling stuck, burned out, or like life just isn't as juicy as you know it can be? If you're nodding right along, it's time for a breakthrough. My coaching program is designed to help you align your life in all 7 pillars of abundance: spiritual, physical, emotional, romantic, mental, social, and financial. So you can finally live that big, bold, sexy, and adventurous life you deserve. And here's the best part. I'm inviting you to schedule a breakthrough call with me. No pressure, no sales gimmicks, just a genuine chance to experience my coaching firsthand and get crystal clear on what is next for you. Because your best life is not a someday thing, it's a right now thing. So click the link in the show notes to book your breakthrough call and let's start making magic together. Your next level is calling you. This podcast review is from Bring It On, and she says that the Balanced, Beautiful, and Abundant show is amazing and inspiring. She goes on to say, I believe this show is a place where women can come and really learn and grow. Rebecca creates a strong and safe space for women to share and be vulnerable. I highly recommend this podcast. Thank you so much, and it is absolutely a safe place for all women to come and learn. Thanks for being a great listener. Welcome back to the Balanced, Beautiful, and Abundant podcast. We are here with Dr. Emily Jamea. So let's talk more about this wonderful book that you wrote. What inspired you to write the 5 secrets to create connection and cultivate passion, the anatomy of desire?
Yeah. So, I had reached a point in my career where I could more or less help people reach their goals. I could balance desire, help women have more reliable orgasms. And what I always do when I kind of get to that point with a couple is I'll schedule an accountability session a few months down the line just to check in and make sure they're still on track. And it was in those sessions that, people would say that things were a lot better than they were when they first started, but they still wanted sex that was a bit more intense, or they'd say, we just want it to feel like it did in the honeymoon phase, or like it seems to be in the movies. And, what was really kind of predominating in the research was the good enough sex model. And it's a great model. I love that model.
What is the good enough sex model?
That in long-term relationships, be happy with good enough sex. You don't want to settle for bad sex, but probably really great sex is going to happen very few and far between. And, at the time, and I started developing this theory, probably 7 years ago, I would say, maybe longer than that. Cause I just remember thinking I was newly engaged and I've been with my husband for 10 years. So it must've been longer. Anyway. And I was like, I just want to bottle this feeling. I don't want to just have good enough sex forever. And so I started paying closer attention to the language my clients were using to describe the sex they wanted. And it was those words like effortless and lost in the moment and world disappear. And that's when I was like, oh, they're talking about a flow state. And I was familiar with flow state, but it's not a term that I had ever heard really talked about in conjunction with sex. So I turned to the literature and found nothing in the research that spoke to that. And so I initiated my own research study. I got a group of people and I had a really wide range of ages. I mean, I talked to people from the ages of like 25 to 75, people who'd been in relationships for like 1 to 5 years up to decades, and gave them some assessments to see how satisfied they were sexually and if they were experiencing a flow state during some of their better sexual experience. And it turned out that they were. And so I called the people that had those high scores and had really long conversations with them about what specifically they did to get into a flow state and what that was like for them. And it was through those conversations that these 5 themes emerged. And so that kind of set the foundation for the book. And I will tell you, and I want all of your listeners to pay very close attention to what I'm about to say, and that is not one of them said that the best sex was honeymoon stage sex.
Oh.
Okay. They all said that it was sex that came much later down the line.
So can you tell us the 5 secrets?
Yes. So the 5 secrets are sensuality, curiosity, adaptability, vulnerability, and attunement.
Okay, so let's unpack. I know we don't want to like take away the whole book, but if you could give us just a couple sound bites on each of these 5 secrets, then I'll get the book and do like the full research together. But give us.
Well, sensuality, we talked about a little bit, that's kind of how to get out of the head into the body. I write about focus and embodiment in that chapter. I think that mindfulness has become such a buzzword, and mindfulness is great. It's an excellent first step. But it can be kind of like mental gymnastics, because you're like noticing the intrusive thought, then bringing your attention back, and then noticing again and bringing your attention. So it's not going to get you into flow state, which is what you want to feel when the brain just goes quiet and it's like pure body. And so I talk about the difference between mindfulness and embodiment in that chapter, and how to really get into the body. And something that we experience during a state of flow is this phenomenon referred to as transient hypofrontality. And so what that means is that the prefrontal cortex part of the brain, the part behind your forehead, which is involved in higher order cognitive function, like rational thinking, decision making, planning, the part that's activated all day long. That part of the brain goes quiet. And so we're not using more of the brain, we're actually using less of the brain. And when that brain region goes quiet, we, self-consciousness goes out the window, that, chitter chatter finally goes, the volume gets turned down, and we can really be present in the body. And so sensuality is all about that. And before I go on, one thing I'll add is you don't have to experience all 5 of these at the same time. In fact, what I wanted for couples was for this book to kind of live on their bookshelf as a resource, depending on what they need at any given time. And so, like, for busy couples with young kids, I think the sensuality chapter is great. For couples for whom sex has gotten kind of boring or monotonous, and they want to just shake things up a little bit, then curiosity is what you want to read about. For couples who are struggling to reconnect after a major life transition, or even a betrayal or something like that, the adaptability chapter is a good one. Vulnerability is when there's kind of a big emotional disconnection, or if sex is feeling just kind of flat and you really want to heighten that emotional element and deepen the experience. The vulnerability chapter is a good one. And then the attunement chapter, I would say in some ways, is kind of like the gestalt of the other 4. It's like where everything comes together and teaches you how to experience sex that's really kind of harmonious and in sync. So it kind of just depends on what's going on.
It's kind of like a meditative state, like when you're out of your head and just in the body and in the flow.
Yeah.
That is what you're describing. I mean, how do we bring in emotions to the bedroom, especially in a long-term relationship?
Gosh, I mean, it's so important that we do. I mean, sex is so much more than a juxtaposition of body parts. And if that's all it is, it kind of dehumanizes it. I think what makes sex one of the many things that makes human sex so interesting is our ability to draw in emotion. And so I write about this some in vulnerability and in other ways in the curiosity, like how to make sex meaningful, how to kind of be intentional about what you need emotionally through the experience. Are you going through a hard time and you need comfort? Did something wonderful happen and you're energetic and it can be almost celebratory? Are you a boss and you just kind of want to be told what to do for once? Like, then use it that way. Like the possibilities are endless in terms of the emotional energy we draw in, but oftentimes we don't make those links or really see it as a place to pull off the mask and explore parts of ourselves that the rest of the world doesn't see. And so I encourage people to do that, especially because doing so adds novelty, without necessarily doing a new thing. Instead of asking, how do you want to mix things up? Like, what's the thing you want to do? I prefer the question, how do you want to feel? Okay. Now what needs to happen? Yeah. To feel differently about the sex you're having.
And how could curiosity come into play? What are some examples of that?
So if sensuality is all about shutting down the mind, curiosity is about waking it up. And so one of the most surefire ways to get into a state of flow, and you can probably think about this as it relates to your tennis game, is by striking the right balance between challenge and skill. So if the challenge of what we're doing is too far below our skill set, we get bored, right? Like if you're playing a beginner, like, okay, you can volley the ball back and forth, but you're not really that into it. Okay.
Yes.
If the challenge is too far above our skill set, we get anxious. Like, Serena Williams hits a serve over, like you're going to be ducking for cover, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that will also keep you from fully immersing yourself in the game. what a lot of people don't realize is that to get into a state of flow, the challenge of what we're doing only needs to be about 4% greater than our skill set. So it's not much. And I think where a lot of couples mess up is they do the new thing they read about, and it's like a way too far above and beyond what maybe they're comfortable with or what one of them is comfortable with. And so sometimes it's about finding the thing that you are comfortable with and seeing how you can make it more like psychologically or emotionally interesting. And I'll give an example. And I wish this had made it into the book, but I was applying this model to a client and the book had already been edited, but it's such a great story. They were pretty used to just having sex in the missionary position. It was fine, but sometimes it's kind of like they're just looking past each other and neither was feeling very engaged. And, I was explaining this to them and he came in, he said, well, this time I took her hands and I pinned them up over her head. Well, that got her attention. It was still the missionary position, but the energy around it completely shifted. Or another time he's like, I asked her to hold eye contact the whole time, and that level of attention forced her to focus and she wasn't able to think about the million other things. Still missionary position, but different energies. And, that can be just enough to shake things up and get into flow.
That is great. Well, I'm excited. You guys heard it here on the Balanced, Beautiful, and Abundant podcast, and it didn't make it into the book. So that was a great story to talk about just how little thing like, holding somebody's hands above their head could make a difference in how they perceive it. That's amazing. And what about vulnerability? I feel like women, especially the type of women that listen to this show, a lot of them are high achievers and they don't want the lights on. They don't want their partner to look too closely at their body, even though their bodies are perfect and beautiful. They feel not enough. How would you encourage them to be more vulnerable? Is that what you mean by vulnerability? I'm sure there's other ways to be vulnerable in the bedroom because the whole experience is vulnerable, but how would you talk about the body image issues that so many women have?
Yeah, I actually have a story in the book about this, a woman who'd had 3 kids and, whose body changed, like so many of our bodies changed after having kids. And she found herself just so distracted by the self-judgment and criticism and intrusive thoughts, even though her partner really thought she was beautiful and wanted to be with her. And I said, instead of working on the body image stuff first, what if we try to get you into a flow state and see if those thoughts dissipate? And they did. And that's exactly what happened. She still doesn't want to go out in a bikini on the beach, but as it relates to just being, because we found how to quiet the brain and therefore eliminate self-consciousness. When we talk about losing ourselves in the moment, it's one component of that is losing self-consciousness. You can't be self-conscious when you are psychologically merged in the experience or with another person. You just can't really do both at the same time. And so I like flow state as kind of a backdoor approach to working through things like body image concerns.
And I think that guys are just so thrilled to be with a naked woman or whatever your preference is. I think people are so excited to be with someone naked that they're attracted to.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh my God, I can't believe that there's cellulite over there. Nobody's thinking about that in the heat of the moment, right? They're just excited that, like you said, skin on skin. It's not people, especially high achieving women, we're too hard on ourselves. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Thank you guys for listening to the Balanced, Beautiful, and Abundant show. Okay, can I be real for a second? You're out there crushing it in some areas of your life, but in others, it's like a hot mess express. Sound familiar? Here's the thing. You're not just meant to survive, you're meant to thrive. And that's exactly what I help my clients do in my coaching program. Together, we'll tackle all 7 pillars of abundance, because who wants killer abs but a dumpster fire of a bank account? Or a thriving career but 0 in the romance department? Yeah, no thanks. I'm inviting you to schedule a breakthrough call with me. No pressure, no awkward sales pitch, just you, me, and a chance to figure out why you're stuck and how to get unstuck. So stop doom scrolling and start doing something about it. Click the link in the show notes and let's start giving you your best, most bougie life. You in? This one says gaining clarity, and it's from Kate House. Listening to and learning from Rebecca has helped me gain clarity on what matters most to me, and it has inspired me to take action. Thank you so much. Yes, we are in the action business, and God is in the results business. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are here talking to Dr. Emily Jamea. She is a sex and relation expert, author of the book Anatomy of Desire, which we've been talking about the 5 secrets to create connection, cultivate passion. So I remember our pre-interview call. We had a really fun conversation and a nice laugh about the show Hunting Wives.
Oh, yeah.
And I would like you to comment on how the cultural and societal conversation has shifted in the last 5 years, because Hunting Wives, if you haven't seen it, if you're listening, it is a lot of lesbian sex, full nudity. I joke that it's like, porn, softcore porn, girl porn, whatever. We were joking about that, but I want you to actually comment on what is the cultural conversation now around sex?
It's so funny. I was watching an interview with Brittany Snow about the show, and she said something that I was like, God, she just hit the nail on the head. She's like, everyone's making such a big deal about how sexy and racy this show is. But she's like, do y'all remember Game of Thrones? And like, she listed a couple other shows that were in a lot of ways more kinky than what we're seeing in Hunting Wives. But I think the difference is that this is modern day women. And, it's just surprising to a lot of people to see women behaving badly that way.
And it's not just modern day, it's like Southern,
Texas women. Yeah, I know.
Conservative value women, but yet behind closed doors, they're acting this way. So,
yeah, it's interesting. Like, we're getting more research on open relationships. And I think what'll be surprising to people to hear is that they're really not finding any differences in political affiliation, liberal versus conservative. Like the rates are more or less the same. So, you just never know what's happening behind closed doors.
Well, that's good. That's one way our country is not divided.
Exactly. We have more in common than we realize.
Yes.
But what's interesting, I think, if we take a step back and look at the big picture, is we are, at the end of the day, in kind of a global sex recession across all demographics. Yeah, people are having less sex than they were in decades prior. And it's weird. It's this very odd juxtaposition, especially in younger generations, because they talk a big game.
All their music and everything is about sex, but they're not having any sex. And why? They're too addicted to their cell phones to put it down and have sex. That's what I think. What do you think? Why is the younger generation having sex?
I think that's a part of it. Yes. I think that dopamine hit we get during sex is struggling to compete with the dopamine we get from how many likes we had on a post. I think we are, so over scheduled and over committed. I mean, when I was growing, I get, so many emails per week from the kids' school. And like, that just wasn't the case when my mom was raising us. She probably had no idea what was happening at the school, which freed her mind. And, I just think we're just in kind of a weird time. Younger kids don't take as many risks as they used to. Now, on the one hand, might hear that and think that it's a good thing. They're not making dumb decisions as it relates to sex, is kind of like, many of my peers and probably myself did at one point or another. But they're ending up to be more anxious because they're not taking the risks. They don't learn how to overcome the adversity, and they then lack that skill set, and they're highly anxious. And what we know is that anxiety and stress kill libido, so they have their reasons for being anxious. I think every demographic probably has its own reasons for just being more stressed out than we ever have in history. Gen X is experiencing probably the smallest difference in terms of frequency compared to in the past, because they, didn't grow up on this stuff the way younger generations are. So it's just interesting because, I think despite claiming to hold very open, liberal attitudes around sexuality, a lot of people just aren't doing it.
Well, another thing is they're drinking a lot less. And I know that when young kids drink, at least, when my generation did, I'm Generation X, all bets were off when it came to sex. Like that, I think drinking is a instigator of sex with teens, and they're not drinking, they're not having sex. Like, what are they doing? They're just getting
and that's not necessarily a bad thing because, they don't, not being under the effect of alcohol keeps them on their toes, which a lot of us didn't experience. Right. But the other thing that's happening, which I think is kind of interesting, is when they do start having, like, kinky sex is happening at a younger age. And I don't know this is just my own opinion. I have to look and see what the research says. I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing. Long term, do you want to be able to mix things up and keep things interesting? Absolutely. We know from the research, yes. But what I feel concerned about is they kind of lack those foundational skills to just really connect emotionally and make love in a way that's not informed by what they've grown up seeing in porn.
Well, that's why they're doing kinky sex. They're imitating porn.
Yeah. And it's just kind of a lot really quickly. And I think that has the potential to kind of, they don't build that foundation that they need. So again, I don't want people to take a sound bite from this and say I'm like anti-kink, because that couldn't be further from the truth. But, young kids just aren't really kind of slowly going through the bases like we did.
Yeah. They probably don't even know what the bases are.
Probably not.
Google that if you're young watching that. Google what the bases meant in terms of sex. So what are some small everyday habits couples can do to keep the spark alive? Because I know this show is all about taking actionable steps to improve your life in 7 pillars of abundance. And this is a big pillar, your romantic life. So single, married, dating, give us some daily actionable steps to improve this area of our life.
It's really easy to start tuning your partner out. I mean, I've even caught myself where my husband will be trying to tell me something and my mind is somewhere else. Yeah. And missing those bids for connection are really damaging to the relationship and definitely translate into our ability to stay connected and attuned sexually. So like he and I think he was just telling me last night that he heard about some kind of, I don't know what it is, but it's basically when you walk into the house, it disables your phone. And I'm like, oh, that sounds a bit extreme, but I get your point. Because we're both guilty of, getting distracted by a ping or a ding. And when you miss each other's nonverbal cues, when you're not tuned in to the subtle shifts in energy, you can't expect to be tuned into those things in bed, which, there is such an emphasis on sexual communication. And yes, that's good. You've got to be able to talk about this stuff, but that's like 101. I want to get people past that to where they can just quiet their mouth and they know their partner so well. Like, your tennis double so well that as soon as you see him or her, move in a way that's signaling you how to move. And that's the kind of energy I want people, or skill rather, that I want people to have in bed. And so if you're not practicing that kind of thing on a regular basis, it's going to feel bumpy when you finally do connect.
So traveling, date nights, like,
oh yeah, all that stuff is good.
Policy, any other?
Yeah, date nights. My thing there is have sex before you go out, not when you get home. Yeah, like you're too tired, you're too full, you're tipsy, like, you know, before you put the makeup on, like call the babysitter to come, you know, half an hour early and connect then, you know. And I think a lot of people put so much pressure on date night because it's, you know, date night's important to maintain that emotional connection, but I don't like to put pressure on people to always have sex at the end of date night for the reasons I just said. You know, maybe it's the next day or, you know, Saturday afternoon when you've then connected emotionally the night before, you've had a chance to unwind. It's the weekend, you know, don't put too much pressure on the date night. And if you are going to have sex, consider doing it at the beginning of the date. It'll make the rest of the night a lot more fun.
Yeah, and it won't mess up your makeup, and then you go home and then go to bed. I love that. So what is your personal favorite romantic comedy or romantic movie and TV show?
Oh gosh, my favorite romantic comedy or TV show. I'm like so bad at these favorite type questions. I don't watch a ton of
Well, do you have any romantic comedies, movies, TV shows that you use as an illustration to your patients to be like, or do you think it's all just that unrealizable ideal that it makes
really
you feel
don't, because I just think what we see in Hollywood is typically so far from reality in most cases. I mean, every now and then you'll get a show that's pretty raw.
Yeah.
But they're not usually like romantic comedies. It's like a more kind of drama that has like maybe a little bit of comedy thrown in for good measure. But, you know, those tend to be heavier shows, the ones that hit closer to home. So no, I really don't reference TV and movies that much. In fact, I discourage people from trying to use that as a model for healthy relationships because you just don't see, you know, all the things that most couples experience as it relates. Sex can be messy and confusing and awkward, and Hollywood edits all of that out, you know, so it's just not a good place to look.
And that's probably another reason why we're in a sexual recession and there's never been more content that's so high quality and good on like Netflix, Hulu, Apple, like Peacock. There's so much content that people are just, their attention is going toward the TV. I mean, they probably, before, when there were 3 channels, where people were probably having more sex because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the 70s where, you know, people would just listen to albums and like have sex for hours because there was literally nothing better to do. So there's
exactly. And they would listen to music, and that's just such a lower intensity, you know, type of thing. And music can move you. I mean, like we always like, we'll have jazz on when we're cooking. Like music helps put you into your body. Your cell phone cannot do that. It just doesn't.
What kind of music do you recommend to listen to when having sex?
Oh, I have a playlist available on my website. You should go check it out.
We're going there.
You can download it. It's got the song list, and they're all kind of like, you know, songs that you wouldn't be able to sing along to, but they've kind of got like a beat and they're intense and the lyrics are kind of sexy, and that can kind of help get you in the mood.
And what's your playlist called on Spotify? Dr. Jamea Sex Playlist?
Oh, I don't think I have it like on Spotify. I just have like it's like a PDF you can download, I think. It's called the Pleasure Playlist.
And do you have a ritual, because you have such a high intense day, you're seeing patients, sometimes there's fighting, there's tears. What do you do to decompress and transition from your busy work life to being in a more sensual state of mind?
Yeah, so I try not to share too many details of my own personal sex life in public because I think it's private. But, in general, for us, it's, anytime we have where we're able to relax our nervous systems and, just have a kind of a more extended time, like quality time together, makes a big difference. Of course, anytime, we're out of town or away from the kids, that never hurts. Yeah. So there's lots of things, lots of tips and tools. And, a lot of the stuff I write about in the book is stuff that I do myself. So, I wouldn't put it out there if I didn't practice what I preach.
What is your morning practice as far as like coffee, tea, supplements, workout? What do you do in the morning to set yourself up for a great day?
Yeah, so coffee first thing, and I started adding collagen peptides to my coffee, and I have found that to really make a difference in not having an afternoon slump. I'm not a big like workout first thing in the morning kind of person. I'm just slow in the morning, so I find that my workouts usually are more intense if I hit it at another time during the day, usually like in the afternoon. Afternoon, I guess, is like my peak time. Now that I'm saying it. So yeah,
Well,
but in my mornings, it's like get the kids out the door and
so coffee, get the kids out the door, and then you start seeing patients. Your skin is glowing, so the collagen and the coffee is definitely working for you.
Thank you. I've got lighting on too, but it never hurts.
Well, you look great. And do you have a favorite evening ritual, not with regards to sex, but just like a wind down routine?
Yeah, so we really don't do phones too much in the evening and really not that much TV either. Like we just try to kind of keep the house quiet. And that does help me just kind of make that transition. All of our lights have dimmers, so we'll dim the lights. I mean, after the kids go to bed, we may like put on a show or something, but we will get in bed like earlier than we need to go to sleep just to like cuddle and be together. And, kind of, if we're in the living room, then it's like, on opposite sides of the couch to be comfortable, but in bed, we're able to kind of hold hands and snuggle. And we really enjoy that before falling asleep.
I think having cuddle time is so important.
Yeah.
This has been such a great conversation. Thank you for being on the show. Where can my listeners find your book? What's your website so we can download that sex playlist and all the other things, Dr. Emily Jamea? Where can we find you?
Yes, so I am on all the social media platforms at Dr. Emily Jamea. My website is emilyjamea.com. I've got tons of free downloads there as well as, some paid stuff. So check that out. The book is available everywhere books are sold. The paperback is currently available for pre-order. It comes out November 4th officially. So you can go check that out now too. And I'm pretty accessible. Like send me a DM and, we can chat.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for being on the show. And thank you, listeners, for sharing this show. We continue to be one of the top podcasts in education because you are sharing this. Share this link with someone, copy and paste it, take a picture of yourself listening to it, tag Dr. Emily and I on Instagram. She just said her tagline is Dr. Emily Jamea, right? Mine is at Rebecca E. Whitman. Tell us which part of the episode you love the most, what you're going to start doing based on all the tips that she gave us. And thank you for going on the journey with me that you can live a life of alignment, not the hustle and grind. Until we meet again, keep your vibe high and magnetize. Bye, everyone.
Level up, don't look back, let's go. Set the pace, watch me steal the show. Higher ground, yeah, I'm rising fast. This is my moment, it's built to last. Keep the focus,